So please make yourself very comfortable. Just take a few moments, as always, to settle in. Settle in and check in. Begin this process of self-inquiry. And as we are beginning this transition, to notice how you are really holding space for yourself. It may, appear that I'm holding space, but really I've only extended an invitation to take this time. This is what the asana really offers us. The yoga really offers us is a very concentrated and specific way to hold space for ourselves. So whatever that means for you, and then we get to notice what we attend to. We get to notice what we're bringing our awareness to, what it is that is arising that we feel is valuable to explore. So we'll just take a few more moments and settle into this holding space. And now the discipline of yoga. And one other thing before we actually begin to move, it's kind of been on my plate quite a bit and something I've been really trying to sit with. And obviously that we come into a yoga position to certainly foundationally explore the body, but obviously the physiology and the psychology are so interwoven. We never really do one without the other. So I think it's important to just keep in mind that when we're looking at the way that the mind is responding, what we're holding in our thinking process, that the mind itself, the nature of the mind, even though it can take us on these fabulous journeys and these amazing explorations and deepen our knowledge and understanding, it also has a limit. And this is something that the mind cannot do, is it cannot explore its own limit. It cannot go beyond what it can't do. So when we, by necessity and convenience, use language in a practice like this, when we're talking about things like awareness and energy and vibration and consciousness and enlightenment and all of these, this language, that ultimately what we are exploring when we really do sink into stillness and we really do quiet down is something that cannot be named, something that is beyond the limit of the thinking mind to label or conceptualize. So I think this is very valuable, especially in a slow practice like this, because we then can just let the language be very, just very background, not to hold on to or grasp or try to discern meaning, but just realize that all of the language and all of the postures and all of the sensations, all of the exploration is really pointing to this that cannot be named. So we'll begin with that. Yes. So let's start to move, and let's come forward into just a simple, just for a moment, let's start with a child's position.
And we won't be here for very long. We're going to lay out on the belly. So just relax forward a bit. And then from here, we'll come flat on the belly. We're going to, I'm going to make sure you have a little towel or blanket or pillow for your head up front. So we're going to come onto the belly first. Yeah. And onto the forearms just to situate here. And we'll maybe take a moment here. So from the unfolding of the forward bend in the child's pose, so now the backward bend here in the Sphinx pose, as we call it. So just just a few moments here. And then we'll rest on the forearm and have the pillow ready. And we're going to take the left arm and slip it under that right armpit. So we'll relax down onto this left shoulder. So the upper body is going to be right over this left shoulder. The reason I suggested a blanket or something, so the head doesn't have to angle all the way to the floor. So support the neck that way. You can bring the right leg up, bend it up to stabilize the hips. And try not to roll. The only reason we would roll away from this is if this is too severe and you have some injury in the shoulder and you can't sustain the full weight of the right shoulder and the right hip, lying as flat as possible. So always feel free to do that if you need to modify this or come in and out of it. And if this is not accessible at all, a nice alternative would be, just since we're just starting with the shoulders here, is to just lean to come back and to rest the shoulders. So no mid back, but just the shoulders on a pillow or the bolster, and just let the arms both straight back up over your head. So obviously a different position. We're not compressing, we're kind of stretching and opening the shoulders, but still it's targeting the shoulders. But that would just be if you're dealing with some kind of injury. And double check, make sure that the neck feels nice and supported. The hips are nice and level. There's no holding. Just a very natural and unhurried, effortless relaxing into your body. One of the reasons why I like this idea of
holding space for oneself, because then we can bring a sense of clarity towards what it is we're really exploring. So if we come into a yoga pose and immediately the mind just drifts back to the sort of mundane or preoccupations of our day, well, then this is what's arising. This is what we're attending to. But the opportunity is really a wonderful one, because typically we're taking in just tremendous amounts of information. So information about our health, about our spiritual journey, about the world at large, about relationships. We're just taking in information. So the capacity for us to hold space for ourselves allows us time to not only process what we've been taking in and possibly holding, but to kind of sift through what's valuable and what's not. And this allows us to not operate from habit and conditioning and programming, because it allows us to see that a certain amount of this information is just not relevant. A certain amount of this information may be outdated and no longer works for us. And at least for myself, I've been really trying to notice if my practices, whatever it is that I'm taking in and processing, do my practices ultimately help me develop compassion and truth and wisdom? So we can use the discernment of this. Are our practices leading to these valuable ways of being and relating, or not? So how then do we genuinely and deeply relax? This is certainly based on relaxing the body, the mind, the heart, but at the same time, maintaining a certain level of clarity. So we're not just continually drifting into vague murkiness, although sometimes that's perfectly acceptable because we just need that level of rest. But it's often a relaxing with a sense of clarity, so we can stay alert to what's arising. We're holding space to allow that arising to happen without judgment. And this is valuable.
So if you have that right arm forward, which is a good spot for it, put a little bit of pressure on there to start to lift yourself up a bit. And let's just roll over to the left. So we just roll off of this arm. And we'll come flat on the back and just let it all dissipate. Let the chi move around. We're not going to go right to the other side, but we will get to the other side, but we'll just lay here for a moment. Good. So if you're ready, we'll sit up. We're going to come forward a bit before we do the other side of that. So I'd like to start with the left leg extended out. And I'm putting it on a little bit of an angle to fix my back leg, but you can just keep it straight ahead of you. The left leg is out. And then this right leg, we're just going to open it up a little bit. So I haven't brought my knees together. I've made some space here in the middle. So this is very telling of how misaligned or tight your hips might be, and your pelvis, particularly the ligaments of the pelvis. So if you're leaning a lot to the left, put some support over there, some pillows or the bolster. We want to try to come forward in this position. Yeah, not so much off to the left, but if this is where the hips are taking you, if it's not that pronounced to the left, you could put your support on the inside of the leg to come forward. And we're only taking this leg back as far as it just starts to open this right hip a bit. Don't force it. We're not trying to straighten it way out, but just a little back opened a bit, and you'll feel it. It'll just tweak the hips in a very unique way. And then coming forward any way that you can, hoping to relax the lower back a bit. So we're not trying to stretch out. There's enough weight in the torso to bring compression into the back of the extended leg, and certainly the hips and the pelvic area. So in what's typically an uncomfortable and awkward pose, use whatever your props you need. Try to make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can, and we'll just settle in for some time.
and certainly a very valuable component of holding space for yourself is to really feel the breath in the moment, feeling the clarity and the rhythm and just the groundedness of the breath itself. Everything is really sewn to the breath in this moment. So the breath is allowing us this space, allowing us this presence.
Okay, so let's come on up from here. I want to continue coming forward. And this particular combination that we're doing these two forward bends together is just a lovely one to keep in mind if you ever just want to open the hips and the back of the legs. So what we'll do from here, we'll take the right leg and we'll bring it around front and we'll extend it forward in a nice relaxed way. And then we'll take this left leg that was extended and we'll bend it in. So anywhere along the inside of this right leg is fine. It just wants the hip and the knee to be nice and relaxed. And then coming forward here, again, use support. I also like to use something on the right side here for my arm. It depends how deep down you come, but sometimes if the arm is hanging over the leg here, it's going to pull on the shoulder or it's going to rest on the shin. So it's nice to just put it on a pillow so the shoulder can feel supported. And then whatever you need on the left side as well. So you could just come to the forearm, or if you're coming low, it's not so much of an issue. If you need to support the torso weight, depending on the depth of the forward bend, because we really want those lower back muscles to be as relaxed as possible.
Everything is sewn to this moment with the thread of the breath.
Let's begin to very slowly roll up from here. Just feeling the certain undulation of the spine. So we're really connecting with the movement of the spine as we unfold. And then you can straighten this left leg out. And then we're going to continue the other side that we started, that shoulder press. So again, have something for your head. So you just have to scooch around and lay on your belly. So laying on your belly here, we're going to come to the forearms once again. So this time we'll take the right hand and put it under that left armpit and just kind of lower your body down onto the shoulder. I know there's a great temptation to roll over to the right. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And then we'll keep the first something for the head. Yes, whatever you need, a little pillow or something. We like to keep the left arm out front for support in case you need to roll off it. And then you can leave the leg straight if this works for your hips. I like to bring that left leg up a bit, bend the knee, and then it just kind of straightens that left hip out a little bit and lets it relax down. And then just allowing the weight of the upper torso to compress into this right shoulder. That's what we're doing. So there's a very good reason why I bring our attention to the limitation of the mind. So the limitation of the mind coming right up to this, I don't want to call it a boundary. There's no really language for it, but the limitation of the mind then receding back, relaxing back into itself, and we intuit this something that cannot be named. So the primary reason for this is because the great value of yoga really is to really come into a sense of genuine and lasting and unperturbable peace. And what yoga suggests is to study the nature of yourself. So if we continue to use language like consciousness and awareness and presence, and certainly these can be extremely refined, and we can, hover between meaning and no meaning, but still they have an objective sense about them because there's a me, a subject, and then the language, the imagery, the concept of consciousness is still a concept. It's still an object. So what yoga is suggesting to cultivate this peace,
to explore the nature of the self, we do this without the relationship to, without the connection to, the grasping to, the projecting of objective experience, and allow ourselves to rest in this that which cannot be named. Sometimes I like to think of it as this wild, free energy. There's simply that. There's simply just this wild, free energy. And then whenever we then uh, allow the finite mind to conceptualize it or think about it or name it or define it, it's just simply a contraction of that wild, free energy. So what I like about that, at least for myself, then there's nothing to really understand. There's no real practice there. It's just a willingness to observe that we can relax into this, we can be this wild, free energy, but we can also contract into a story about it, or a concept about it, or anything about it. It's wild and it's free and it's energy.
So let us begin our transition again. If you have this left hand arm out front, that's good. You can just support yourself up a bit. And this time we'll roll over to the right side. So this is just a nice way to come out of this. Just roll over onto your back and just let that right arm relax. Good. So when you're ready, let's come on up. And now we'll do the forward bend on the other side. So same thing. This time we'll begin with this right leg out. And then we'll just take this left leg back to where your range of motion starts to tug. So it starts to tug. Make sure it's relatively comfortable. There's no forcing. So because this position of the hips also is pulling on a very different part of the hamstring. So we want kind of an equilibrium between the pelvis and the back of the leg. And again, if you are leaning to the right, put your support on the right. If not so much, you can put it on the inside or wherever it's needed. You could even come towards the center. That's ultimately where this position is headed, to bring the upper body right in between the knees. But it takes like I said, that extended leg and the hips. In some ways, there's a lot of pushing and pulling, a lot of tensegrity to this pose. So try to enjoy it if you can. Maybe not at first, but it's such a lovely pose. So I say it's a lovely pose. This would be between you and your hips, though. I mentioned earlier that we can begin to use the breath as a way to be grounded in the pose, but also consider that we can use the discomfort itself as a grounding. And this is often an interesting exploration, because there's always a part of us that just doesn't want the discomfort there. It wants to push the pain away or fix it somehow, a very natural tendency. But one of the things that we explore in this practice is how to sit with what's uncomfortable, how to explore it. And what I'm suggesting is how to possibly use the pain as a ground in itself. So it's there as part of the fabric of your experience. We want to get as close to it as possible. We're going to feel it directly sometimes in this like pinpoint center, if you will, but also allow yourself to relax to the periphery of the sensation. So a sensation is a very complicated, vague kind of experience that comes and goes and shifts. So if we push it away, if we react to the discomfort of, let's just get rid of it, then we're in a very different exploration. If we allow ourselves to feel a certain groundedness, that this is my body, this is my mind, this is my direct experience, how can I feel safe enough and relax enough to genuinely let it be and explore it and stay grounded and safe? Okay, so let's come on up from here and we will continue with this lovely combination. So same thing as last time. However, this time that back leg, that left leg, we will bring around front. So the left leg will stay extended and the right leg will come in for our half butterfly position. And then just coming forward gently, using any supports that you need, or you could always go to your hands. Sometimes it's nice to go to the hands if you are going to withdraw a bit or really spend some time exploring the layers of sensation. So, the stillness is just ultimately for us to relax without being distracted from the discomfort, but it doesn't mean we can't initiate some very passive and gentle movement to explore how the body is holding. So sometimes we come in a little too deep or we're not sure, we want to withdraw and go back in. So, always take your time and make sure you're fitting your body in at an appropriate depth. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about this practice is there's no alignment, there's no way, there's no alignment, and there's no aesthetic, there's no certain way the posture should look. It's just we're evoking layers of sensation. We're using the position of the body to hold space to explore what's being evoked. And this idea of relaxing from the naming is not just with the mind, it's not just with our conceptual frameworks, it's certainly with the body itself. So part of our habitual relationship with the body is we think we have a map of it. We think we know what the sensations are representing, but we certainly do not.
So this is why we want to feel them. We want to allow them to uh, have some movement, have some expression. So the moment we label and name something, we've kind of separated it into a, and then we've actually put it into a conceptual framework. So this is very good to notice. It's very good to notice that uh, what conceptual frameworks are we putting around our discomfort? Whether that's physical, emotional, or mental discomfort. What are the conceptual frameworks we put around our discomfort? Because this is going to play out in this movement of the body and the mind. So allow the mind to relax beyond where its limit is, but also the body as well. So we don't need to name or diagnose or feel we know something about the sensation. Let your intuitive nature be much more creative.
Good. So let us come on up from here, if you will. We'll just roll up again, feeling the spine with maybe a sense of undulation. And then we can relax that right leg. And now we'll lie down and we will take a little rest. Well, we'll take a little longer rest because we haven't really rested yet. So let's rest. And this actually goes for everything. Saying mind and body is again such a limitation and just a convenience of language. But whatever it is that we get to experience, fatigue, boredom, anxiety, indigestion, even, we think we know what these things are. Again, we have this sort of knee-jerk habit of putting these conceptual frameworks around whatever it is that's arising experientially. So what the practice is inviting, the yoga is inviting us just to look closer. We don't have to make a determination, but just to look closer and see if there is deeper, subtle qualities to whatever it happens to be. And this is just, not only is it extremely beneficial, but this is an open-ended, a moment to moment. This can become just part of our daily life. Just as yoga is, it's not that we do yoga, we are yoga. We are this bringing these perceptual separations together. But to slow down enough to see when we are feeling certain things, instead of
just categorizing them instead of putting our habits of definition, to see, is there a depth of subtle qualities to whatever it is? And ultimately, this helps us cultivate a deeper type of somatic intuition that can actually guide us for our health and well-being. And this kind of relates a bit to what I was talking about before. If this, if we're looking at the body, the mind, the world, the universe, ultimately as this, wild and free energy, then even the contraction of that energy, even if it's a discomfort, if it's a weariness, if it's uh, something, a repetitive pattern in the mind, it's an interesting thing to think about. Any of these experiences are just simply a contraction of that energy. So we don't have to feel something is stable and static and solid and objectifiable necessarily. We can allow ourselves to inwardly flow and explore and release. Okay, so let's come on up and take out your bolster. And if you don't have a bolster, just whatever pillow you use to replicate the like the firmness and the height of the bolster. And then possibly something for your head, always a possibility. We're going to do a backward bend, so something for your head. And you may want to have a blanket or a towel folded up to your side, and this can help alleviate if this is too stressful. So the bolster, if you know your bolster, you know how deep this will go for you. If you're using pillows, it's a pretty deep backward bend. So this is why sometimes we want to bring those hips up to make it not so deep. Just depends. The back is a mysterious thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this bolster side to side. Yeah, and this will help for the depth and keeping the feet on the floor, coming back. And I suggest to have it starting a little bit higher than trying to get it low, because we want to keep the buttocks on the floor. So as long as the shoulders aren't on it, so we can let the arms drape to the side. So my shoulders are over the bolster. Yeah. So keeping the feet on the floor, make sure then first thing would be to stabilize the neck. So whatever you're using for head support, you want to place that. And then as you start to let the legs relax out, you'll see if it's too much, you just reach over, put the feet back on the floor, elevate the hips, and put something under there. So the more you bring them up, the less stress in the lower back. Yeah. And then what you can do, maybe I'll remind you as we go, you can always then put your feet on the floor and just scoot your body up a little bit, and this will go lower into the lower back. So you don't have to just stay in this one position the whole time. You want to bring it mid a little bit. It's kind of big, but I do feel a difference now. It's in my lower back, very different than even a few inches up. So feel free to explore with that. And then ultimately, we want to go back to allowing the legs to relax out. The arms, for now, can stay draped on either side. So the arms on the floor, the shoulders are over the pillows or the bolster. And we just want to prepare to stay here for a reasonably good amount of time. So that's why you want to have something to put the hips on if need be. And it's very good to take this in, especially in a backward bend. What I was saying earlier, that the the spine actually is undulating. It's not straight, certainly, and it's not stationary. So while we have the spine in this exaggerated position, even just if we imagine it, if we just creatively visualize that the breath is just rippling through this undulation of the spine. So we want that visualization that there's space between the vertebra, that the spine has this capacity to undulate, and again, that it's not straight and it's not stationary. And it's one of the reasons that we do so many backward bends. We want to maintain the health or reestablish the natural curves in the spine, because this provides a cushioning, sort of a spring-like effect when we walk or run. In any way that you can, just to allow your awareness to, deeply penetrate your body. So we feel this physicality more as texture. So we're not scanning for problems. We're not reinforcing interpretations that we have about the body. But whether it's uncomfortable sensations or bones or muscle, fascia, joints, we're more interested in a texture, the body, the soma as texture. And again, whatever is arising, distraction, weariness, pain, don't automatically think you know what it is. Allow yourself to lean into it in a way that takes you into a depth of subtlety with it. How is this feeling? How is this feeling? And what's interesting about this is at some point we start to realize that everything is really in a constant state of flux. And so this is precisely why we continue to relax and continue to relax. So we're able to see this, we're able to see that what we thought that was and where it was and how it was has already shifted into something else. What we thought was taking us into a certain depth brings us right back to the surface, thinking that we're hovering along the surface. All of a sudden, it takes us into this incredibly deep place. And through the genuine relaxing and letting go of interfering in this, we get to see that it's not the content of any of these things that we're interested in. The content is what's in constant flux. But our capacity to experience, our awareness of these objective events, this never changes. And this is the primary discernment that the yogi makes. This is the primary identification that the yogi makes, that ultimately I am what doesn't change. Ultimately, I am this wild, free energy. I'm not the temporary contraction. So if you would like to stretch the arms over the head, just going to have some movement here to start to alert the body. We're going to move, but being in it this long, we want to move really slowly. So you can put the arms over the head and you can put the feet flat on the floor once again, but please, no rush here. So a couple of ways that I like to explore this coming out of this, especially after this time, is to roll side to side a couple of times and soften up those ribs. So that's always nice. It kind of gets the muscles released a bit, or you can shimmy back and come out of the back line completely. Nice way to feel the spine undulating here, and then put the pelvis on your pillows or bolster. So then you can, if you have the pelvis on the bolster, you can bring your knees up to your chest and pump them in a little bit, maybe sway the hips a little bit. So no rush at all. Really take your time coming out of this. And then if you do have the pelvis up on this and you're bringing the knees up, just takes a little bit or more roll back, and you can push the pillow or bolster out from under you. And you can even put the legs on it. If you're going side to side on the ribs, at some point you just roll off of this. And then when you finally come out, let's lie flat and rest from this. And one of the things that I have found about, what I'm talking about here about cultivating this subtlety in your body is that it can be a very therapeutic way to explore your body. And it can also be a very profound way to explore your body. Getting to the point where more and more you reference the wisdom of the body before you seek out external information. So we start to realize, and this is just a realization, that everything is a doorway into something else. And every doorway is a doorway into something else. So this is what we call nuance, to explore the body this way. And this does take a certain kind of sensitivity and a certain willingness as well. Because this process I'm describing really is never ending. So for each of us, then we find the balance where we're comfortable, where we have this access to our body. We develop this nuance of really listening and following the wisdom of the body. But at the same time, how do we balance that with the external information that we take in? And what's fascinating about this is this can be done simply on a physical level. It can be done on an emotional level, therapeutically, and it can also be done on a spiritual level. That we don't have to rest with a belief system. We don't have to rest with a conceptual framework. We don't have to rest with our outdated habits. That we can approach a doorway knowing that a doorway leads to a doorway, and another doorway leads to another doorway, and it's unending. And this is what I was alluding to earlier when I said that everything is a constant flux. Because as humans, we don't stay still in this way, that the stillness and the movement are interwoven. It's never yin or yang. It's never black or white. It's always it's never negative and positive. It's always movement. It's always movement from stillness and stillness from movement. This is what we would call flow. Okay, so let's come on up. I want to do this lovely twist now. So we're going to use the large bolster. If you don't have the large bolster, maybe a pillow that approximates it will work. And we want to support the torso, and we also want to support the neck. So I'll just show it with my trusty bolster here. Also knowing for this, if you need or would like, you can elevate one end of the bolster if this is too intense on the neck, because there's going to be a neck twist from the lower spine twist. So that's always a possibility. So what I'm going to suggest is you just let's sit to the left side of your pillow or bolster, and you could just bend both knees back. You're just sitting at the far end of the bolster with the rest of the bolster out forward. And what we're going to do is we're going to drape the upper body over it. So I'm going to lean over this bolster, and then we're going to attempt to place the left ear. So I'm sitting to the left of the bolster, and then I'm going to put the left ear on the bolster. So this will give me a neck twist. Yeah. So if this is at some point feeling, I don't think so, maybe too deep, this is what I'm suggesting. You can elevate the bolster, and this will make it more accessible. So any way that this works for you. And then what we're doing here is we're initiating this entire spine twist from obviously the hips and the lumbar right up into the upper cervical spine. So elevate it as you need. If you don't need to, and you can feel safe and settle in, you can make some adjustments here.
The hands can just relax on the floor. Just very important here to feel safe in the neck, because obviously we hold a lot there, and we have to feel safe in those threads. And also a lovely, polarity to be able to look at this. What I was just talking about is within internally in our own energies, masculine and feminine, because fundamentally the masculine energy just simply wants completion. The masculine energy just wants it to be over, just wants to sit in pure consciousness. The feminine energy is open to growth and the unknown and the sense of unending flow, always something. So this sense of flux, this sense of how we explore our energies, I was saying, yes, certainly yin and yang and hot and cold and all these polarities, but within each of us, regardless of gender, we have the masculine energy and we have the feminine energies. And so often a pull for us just to have completion, just to sit with our own sense of enlightenment, our own sense of, okay, this is it, and enough already. Whereas the feminine, it's never enough, it's always blossoming. And how we balance those energies within us is very unique and very personal. This is one of the reasons why I more and more come to value and see what a gift clarity really is, because uh, these are gifts. The way that our senses bring us in and out of the world, the way we are self-reflective with the whole universe, this is such a tremendous gift. And so to be able to have clarity in the body and the heart and the mind, we can just enjoy this gift of being human so much more. Being in despair and having confusion and anxiety is just a contraction of that energy that we want to release. So this is why we want to understand how to how our body and how our mind and our heart is holding these energies. What is a contraction? What is the texture of a contraction? Good. So what we're going to do here is let's slowly begin to straighten out the neck first. And I think the best thing to do from here, a nice way to come out of this, is just move into a child's pose. So you can just push yourself over to the left and come into a child's pose. Yeah. So if your knees need a little rest, you can just lay out on your belly and rest your knees. So either way, but the main thing is to let the neck come back to a neutral place before we do the other side. Nice thing about the child pose, you can move the neck side to side. If you're laying on your belly, you may want to put the forehead on the back of the hands. And then even there, you may have a little movement side to side. Good. So again, we'll take our time, but if you're ready to try the other side of this, so what we'll do is come on up and we'll put the bolster, we'll sit on the right side of the bolster or the pillow, whatever you're using. And we're just going to sit on that left hip and just bend the knees to the side. Yep. So now when we come down over this, obviously the right ear will come on to the bolstering. So you can support it up with another pillow or blanket, but obviously this side is going to be a little different. And kind of feel that. I'm talking about the spine undulating today. So it's nice to feel this twist. So as I'm placing my right ear, we can feel that that spine is not stationary and is not straight. So we'll try to get that right ear on it. If this isn't working, put something under, bring it up a little bit.
One of the places that we can bring this clarity to is to pendulate between feeling that I am a body. Yeah, so for most of us, this is one of our primary identifications, that we just feel like this is who we are. We are this body. So allow yourself that. Allow yourself whatever associations or attachments you have to this body, that I am the body. But then we pendulate and we go to, I am aware that I have a body. And we go back and forth with this so we can make that distinction between feeling that we have a body, we are the body, and feeling that we are simply aware of the body. There is an awareness of the body. And then when we make that distinction, then we just stay with that awareness. We just stay that we are aware that there is a body. We don't have to then cling, grasp, attach, or most importantly, identify with that we are the body. And this is something to kind of play with, really, and be patient with. But once the distinction is there, then you can relax into the awareness. And certainly we can do this with the mind as well. Another one of our primary identifications. I am the mind. This is quite common, quite a creative trap, creative contraction. And I am aware of the mind. So the awareness of gives us some distance from the attachment to it. Good. So once again, we'll come off of this, move your head very slowly here, and you can just push yourself off of the bolster and either come into child's pose, or now you can lay on your back. So if you'd like to roll over and lay on your back, we'll take a rest before we move on. So you can come into child's pose for a bit if you like. You can just go right to laying on your back. And that is one of the beautiful things about really cultivating, holding space for ourselves, because then we have so many more options that we can come into these positions. And sometimes it's just, wanting to find relief in the neck or relief in the lower back. And it becomes a very physical exploration. So we don't have to necessarily follow these, sort of creative explorations of the mind, but we get to see through this state of flux and these polarities that whatever the exploration begins with, it has tentacles in every aspect of our experience. So we don't have to ever come into the posture with an agenda. We just come in with this feeling of safety, this feeling of intimacy with ourselves, hold space for ourselves, and then see the energies that are arising. This is what we examine. This is the inquiry. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And two things that I want you to have is a nice roll. So I just rolled up a blanket, and then obviously, as always, the size of the roll will determine the compression, so you could unroll it, and either a large bolster or something similar to put under your knees. But while we're sitting here, before we do this next thing, since we just twisted the neck so much, let's just sit and just have a little bit of neck mobility here. So keeping the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor, just very gently let the head go back and forth, left and right. Just kind of ease into what you're feeling at the end there. Obviously, don't force it. See if you can relax the shoulders and feel a sense of lightness, the skull kind of elevating a little bit off the shoulders. Good. And then we'll come back to neutral. And then we'll just tuck the chin down and then bring the head back, but not allowing the head to kind of rest in the back of the neck, but kind of pull up a little bit as we bring the head back. So be careful on the back one. I like to feel like the base of my skull is pulling up a little bit and then chin down. So just do a few of these as well. This is a really nice thing to get in the habit of doing this on a regular basis, this neck mobility. And then again, we'll come back to neutral, the bottom of the chin parallel to the floor. And then we'll just do left ear to left shoulder and right ear to right shoulder. But again, trying not to let the weight of the skull sink into the neck. But when the left ear goes to the left shoulder, feel as if the right ear is pulling up, up, up. Right ear to right shoulder, left ear is pulling up. And again, just feeling a very natural sense of undulation up and down the spine. It is not stationary, it's not straight. Good. So that's good. Yeah, good. Just to kind of loosen it up after that last twist. Then very simply here, we're not going to stay too long in either of these. So there won't be a rest in between. Relatively for us, it won't seem short, but relatively, we're going to come into the backward bend, come into the forward bend, backward bend, forward bend. So it's nice to do this sometimes to kind of bring them together. So I'm just putting this roll behind me, side to side. And again, how high your roll is will determine what you're feeling back there. So now we're going to try to bring it as low as possible, where when we use the big one, we went up near the shoulders. So feet on the floor. I like to come back to my forearms. Yeah, check in as you're bringing the upper body weight down. See how this feels. If the buttocks come off the floor, just scooch down a little bit. And then if you're able to let the legs relax out. Yeah, if you don't feel safe relaxing the legs out, then just unroll your roll an inch or two. So you feel nice and safe. Gently feeling and imagining the breath rippling through the undulation of the spine, feeling and imagining space between the vertebra. So before we come up from this, let's just bend the knees and put the feet on the floor and just very, very slowly let the knees go side to side a bit here. So just a very different twist than the one we did forward over the bolster. So you may feel this, especially with that roll compressing into the back. So just side to side, when they come as far as they can go, let them rest a bit there. And then the next time the knees come to the side, whichever side, we'll just roll off of this to the side and just slowly push yourself up. So again, please rest if you need to, but we're intentionally not taking the rest so we can take the energy of the backward bend into the forward bend. And now what we want to do is we want to take the bolster or your big pillow and put it underneath the knees. The soles of the feet can come together. And very slowly here. So this is going to take us very directly without the weight of the legs into the hips. So really soften and round and relax, and we'll come forward here. Again, whatever you're feeling, slow down. Everything is a doorway, which is a doorway into something else. So we're more interested in texture and qualities.
Good. So let us emerge. Let's roll up the spine. And we can take the bolster out from under. Hopefully your roll is still where you had it behind you. So you can adjust it now. So second time, maybe a little different. You may need to roll it up or unroll it. The feet are going to stay on the floor till you're safe and stable. So we'll come over the roll, let the upper body come back, extend the legs out, and here we are again. Rest in the presence of yourself. Resting in the presence of yourself without adding anything to yourself. So let all the debris just settle. Anything that is not you, let it settle. This is genuine and deep rest. And let the presence of yourself shine. No beliefs, no information is necessary to do this. And from this place of rest, we can have a very deep faith in our own body. We know that we are present. We rest in this presence. We allow this presence to shine. And we have a deep and abiding faith in the body itself. Good. So once again, you can bend your knees and put your feet on the floor. And we're going to take that time again to let the knees go back and forth. So no rush here. If they want to settle and stay to one side for some time, allow them to do that. But again, mostly weaving this passive movement into the stillness of the pose and just feeling this relationship, this most fundamental relationship between the fascial holding, the fascial capsules and the muscles themselves. So the more we open the capsule of the fascia around the muscle, the more the muscle can strengthen and have movement. So this is always in play when we're compressing into the body and then moving the body, compressing, releasing.
And then again, when your knees get to one side, we can roll off of this and we'll come forward and we'll come right back into the same forward bend with something under the knees, relaxing and rounding the back and coming into another forward bend. Good. So we're going to roll up from here. And then I would just invite you to take the bolster away and just straighten out the legs to any angle that feels appropriate. So you can come nice and wide, you can come more hip width or something in between. And let's just come forward for a few more moments just to, just to do it, just to come forward. So let's come up from there. And you can come into your final relaxation if you would like. You can continue with a counter movement if you need more poses, or you could sit up with me and we'll take a few moments of quiet to close. And I would like to close with just a feeling of gratitude for how transient and how fragile and how wondrous this life really is. Always a very worthy thing to just deeply appreciate this gift that we have. And namaste.